The Cricks, a group of aliens with shiny, hard skin and sharp claws, thought they could do whatever they wanted. They believed no one would stop them. Far away from Earth, in a dark, hidden space station floating in the cold emptiness of space, they did something terrible. They took 10 humans, people just like you and me, and ended their lives. There was no court to decide if it was fair. No one asked for their names or stories. The Cricks wanted it to stay quiet, like a secret no one would ever find out. They thought the rest of the galaxy, all the planets and stars out there, wouldn't care. They thought Earth, our home, wouldn't notice. But they were very wrong. The galaxy was watching like eyes in the dark. And Earth was listening, ready to act. This space station wasn't like the ones you see in movies, with bright lights and friendly robots. It was old, creaky, and tucked away where no one would look for it. The Cricks picked this place because they thought it was safe. They thought they could hide what they did. The walls were made of cold metal, and the air was so chilly you could see your breath. The 10 humans were brought there in chains, their hands tied, their faces scared but brave. They didn't know why the Cricks were doing this. The aliens didn't explain. They just gave orders in their harsh, clicking language, like bugs talking to each other. The humans stood tall, even though they were afraid. They didn't beg or cry. They looked at each other, sharing silent promises to be strong. The Cricks' leader, a tall creature with eyes like glowing red coals, stood in front of the humans. His name was Zorak, and he was known for being cruel. He didn't care about the humans or their families back on Earth. To him, they were just a problem to get rid of. He waved his claw and his soldiers moved fast. Everything happened so quickly. One moment the humans were there, standing together. The next, they were gone. The Cricks thought that was the end of it. They thought no one would ever know. They cleaned the station, turned off the lights, and left it empty, floating like a ghost in space. They flew away in their sleek black ships, laughing their strange, clicking laughs. They believed they had won. But secrets don't stay hidden forever. Out in the galaxy, there are always ways for news to travel. Tiny robots, smaller than your fingernail, float through space, listening and watching. Some of them saw what happened. They recorded the Cricks' ships coming and going. They heard the sounds of the station, the chains, and the silence that followed. These robots sent their messages across the stars like whispers in the dark. The messages reached other aliens, ones who didn't like the Cricks. These aliens shared the news with traders, pilots, and explorers. Soon, the story of what the Cricks did was spreading, like ripples in a pond. On a small planet called Vara, a trader named Leela heard the news. Leela was a kind alien with soft, blue fur and big, curious eyes. She sold fruits and tools to ships passing by. One day, a pilot told her about the 10 humans and the secret station. Leela's heart felt heavy. She knew humans were strong and smart, but they didn't deserve this. She decided to send a message to Earth. She typed it on her small computer, her paws shaking a little. "Earth," she wrote, "the Cricks have hurt your people. 10 are gone. It happened in a hidden place. Be careful." She pressed send, and the message zoomed through space, faster than light, heading straight for Earth. Back on Earth, it was a sunny morning. People were going to school, working in gardens, and building new things. In a tall building made of glass, a group of humans worked to keep Earth safe. They were called the Guardians. They had computers that could hear messages from far away, even from other planets. When Leela's message arrived, a young Guardian named Mia saw it first. Mia was only 20 years old, but she was very smart. She read the message and her eyes grew wide. 10 humans, she whispered. She ran to her boss, a kind man named Captain Lee. "Sir," she said, "something bad happened. The Cricks did something awful." Captain Lee read the message. His face turned serious. He called a meeting right away. Other Guardians came to a big room with a round table. They all looked worried. "The Cricks think they can hurt us and get away with it," Captain Lee said. "They think we're weak, but they don't know who we are." The Guardians nodded. They knew Earth wasn't just a planet. It was a home full of people who cared about each other. They wouldn't let the Cricks win. They started making plans, but they kept them quiet. They didn't want the Cricks to know they were coming. The Cricks back on their home planet were feeling proud. They sat in their tall, spiky towers, eating strange, glowing food. Zorak told his soldiers, "The humans are gone and no one will care. We are stronger than them." His soldiers cheered, banging their claws on the tables. They thought the galaxy belonged to them. They thought they could do anything they wanted. But they didn't know about the messages flying through space. They didn't know about Layla or Mia or Captain Lee. They didn't know that Earth was already starting to fight back, even if it was just with whispers and plans for now. The galaxy wasn't as quiet as the Cricks thought. Other aliens were talking. On a planet called Tyro, a group of small, bird-like aliens heard the news. They were called the Flynn. The Flynn loved to sing and share stories. When they heard about the 10 humans, they stopped singing. They gathered in their colorful nests and talked in soft chirps. "The Cricks are mean," one Flynn said. "The humans didn't hurt them. Why did they do this?" Another Flynn, an old one with silver feathers, said, "We should tell others. The Cricks can't hide this." The Flynn started sending their own messages, telling every planet they knew about what happened. These messages kept spreading. They reached a big space station where many aliens lived together. This station was like a giant city in space, with shops, parks, and even schools for alien kids. A teacher there, a green-skinned alien named Rollo, told his students about the humans. "The Cricks think they can hurt people and no one will care," Rollo said. "But we care, and I bet Earth cares too." His students, with their big eyes and floppy ears, nodded. They went home and told their parents. Soon, everyone on the station was talking about the Cricks and the humans. Back on Earth, the Guardians were working hard. Mia stayed up late looking at maps of space on her computer. She found the secret station where the Cricks had taken the humans. It was far away, but not too far for Earth's ships to reach. She showed Captain Lee. "We can go there," she said. "We can find out what happened." Captain Lee put his hand on her shoulder. "Good work, Mia," he said. "But we need to be smart. The Cricks don't know we're watching. Let's keep it that way for now." Guardians sent a small ship to the secret station. It was a fast ship, painted black so it could hide in the dark of space. The people on the ship were brave. They knew it might be dangerous, but they wanted to find answers. When they got to the station, it was empty. The Cricks had left, but the humans found clues. They found chains on the floor. They found a small necklace one of the humans had dropped. It had a tiny heart on it made of silver. The team took pictures and brought the necklace back to Earth. They showed it to Captain Lee. "This belonged to someone," he said. "Someone with a family. We won't forget them." The Cricks didn't know any of this was happening. They thought they were safe. They thought the galaxy was too big for anyone to care about 10 humans. But the galaxy isn't just stars and planets. It's people too. Aliens like Lila the Flynn and Rollo. Humans like Mia and Captain Lee. All of them were starting to come together like pieces of a puzzle. The Cricks thought they had won, but they had only started something bigger. something they couldn't stop. Earth was ready to show the Cricks they had made a mistake. The Guardians were planning, the galaxy was talking, and the story of the 10 humans was growing louder. The Cricks thought they could hide in the dark, but the light was coming, and it was coming from Earth. The 10 humans the Cricks took weren't just random people. Each one had a story, a family, and someone who loved them deeply. These weren't strangers nobody cared about. They were important to people who had power, skill, and determination. The Cricks thought they could make these humans disappear and no one would notice. They were wrong. They hurt the wrong people, and those people's loved ones were not going to stay quiet. One of the humans was named Tara. She was a young woman with bright eyes and a big smile. Tara was the sister of a brilliant scientist named Dr. Eli Carter. Eli worked in a lab on Earth, building machines that could talk to stars. He was famous for making a tiny robot that could fly to other planets and send back pictures. Tara was his little sister, and they were very close. When they were kids, they used to sit in their backyard, looking at the sky, dreaming about exploring space together. Tara loved to draw, and she would sketch the planets Eli told her about. When Eli heard the Cricks had taken her, his heart broke. He stopped working on his robots and promised to find out what happened. Eli wasn't just smart, he was stubborn. He wasn't going to let the Cricks get away with this. Another human was Sam, a strong man who worked on a space station fixing ships. Sam was loved by Commander Lena Ortiz, a leader who guided huge fleets of spaceships. Lena was tough, with short hair and a voice that made everyone listen. She and Sam had been best friends since they were kids. They grew up in a small town on Earth, climbing trees and racing bikes. Sam always made Lena laugh, even when things were hard. When Lena found out Sam was one of the 10 taken by the Cricks, she felt like someone had punched her in the stomach. She stood in her command room, staring at the stars, and made a promise. "I'll bring you home, Sam," she whispered. Lena wasn't just a commander, she was a fighter, and she was ready to use her ships to make things right. Then there was Mia, a young girl who loved to sing. Mia was only 16, but her voice could make anyone stop and listen. She was the daughter of a famous hacker named Zara. Zara could break into any computer, no matter how strong its locks were. She worked for Earth's Guardians, the group that kept the planet safe. Zara and Mia were like two peas in a pod. They loved playing games where Zara would hide messages in code, and Mia would try to solve them. When Zara heard Mia was gone, she dropped her computer tablet. Her hands shook, but her mind was already working. Zara knew she could use her skills to find the Cricks' secrets. She wasn't going to stop until she brought her daughter back. Another human was Jamal, a teacher who helped kids learn about animals. Jamal was kind and patient, always telling stories about creatures from different planets. He was married to a builder named Aisha, who made homes for people on new colonies in space. Aisha was strong, with hands that could shape metal and wood into beautiful houses. She and Jamal dreamed of building a home together on a quiet planet someday. When Aisha learned the Cricks had taken Jamal, she stopped her work. She looked at the tools in her hands and thought about how she could use them to fight back. Aisha wasn't just a builder, she was someone who never gave up. There was also Carlos, a pilot who flew fast ships through dangerous parts of space. Carlos was brave and always made his passengers laugh with his jokes. He was the best friend of a doctor named Dr. May Chen. May saved lives on Earth and on space stations, fixing broken bones and curing sick people. She and Carlos had known each other for years. They met when Carlos flew her to a planet to help sick kids. When May heard Carlos was taken, she felt like the world stopped. She sat in her clinic, holding a picture of them laughing together. May wasn't just a doctor, she was someone who cared about justice. She knew she could help find her friend. Another human was Layla, a gardener who grew food on a small space station. Leela loved plants and knew how to make them grow even in space, where there was no soil. She was the sister of a trader named Omar. Omar traveled across the galaxy, selling tools and clothes to different planets. He was clever and always knew how to make a deal. Leela and Omar talked every day through video calls, laughing about their adventures. When Omar heard Leela was gone, he stopped his ship in the middle of space. His heart felt heavy, but he started thinking. Omar knew people on every planet. He could spread the word about what the Cricks did. He wasn't going to let them forget Layla. There was also Emma, a girl who loved fixing robots. Emma was only 18, but she could take apart a machine and put it back together better than before. She was the daughter of a leader named General Marcus Lee. Marcus was in charge of Earth's biggest space army. He was strict but fair, and he loved Emma more than anything. When Emma was little, Marcus would watch her play with her toy robots, smiling at how smart she was. When he heard the Cricks took her, Marcus felt like a storm was inside him. He called his soldiers together and said, "We're going to find her." Marcus wasn't just a general. He was a dad who would do anything for his daughter. Another human was Raj, a cook who made the best food on a space station. Raj's soups and cakes made everyone happy, even on tough days. He was loved by a pilot named Kiera who flew supply ships to faraway places. Kiera was fast and fearless, always flying through asteroid fields like it was a game. She and Raj were planning to get married someday. When Kiera heard Raj was gone, she landed her ship and cried. But then she wiped her tears and started her engines again. Kiera knew she could fly anywhere to find the Cricks. She wasn't going to let them take her future. There was also Sophie, a writer who told stories about brave heroes. Sophie's books were read by kids and adults across the galaxy. She was the best friend of an engineer named Leo. Leo built bridges and roads on new planets, making it easier for people to live there. He and Sophie loved to sit together and make up new stories. When Leo heard Sophie was taken, he dropped his tools. He felt angry and sad, but he knew he could use his skills to help. Leo wasn't just an engineer. He was someone who could build a plan to fight back. Finally, there was Noah, a kid who loved animals. Noah was only 12, but he knew everything about creatures from Earth and other planets. He was the son of a diplomat named Sarah. Sarah talked to aliens from different worlds, making peace and solving problems. She and Noah were very close. Noah would tell her about the animals he wanted to save, and Sarah would listen with a smile. When Sarah heard Noah was gone, she stopped her meetings. She looked at the stars and made a promise. Sarah wasn't just a diplomat. She was a mom who would fight for her son. These 10 humans, Tara, Sam, Mia, Jamal, Carlos, Lila, Emma, Raj, Sophie, and Noah, weren't just names. They were people with dreams, families, and friends. The Cricks thought they could take them and no one would care. But they didn't know about Eli, Lena, Zara, Aisha, May, Omar, Marcus, Kiera, Leo, and Sarah. These people were powerful in their own ways. Some were smart, some were brave, and some were strong. But all of them loved the humans the Cricks took. They weren't going to stay quiet. They were going to make the Cricks wish they had never done this. The Cricks thought they had won by taking these 10 people. They thought the galaxy would forget. But the galaxy doesn't forget when someone hurts people who are loved. Eli was already in his lab working on a new plan. Lena was checking her ships, making sure they were ready to fly. Zara was typing on her computer, looking for the Cricks' secrets. Aisha was gathering her tools, thinking about how to use them. May was talking to other doctors, asking for help. Omar was sending messages to his trader friends. Marcus was meeting with his soldiers. Kiera was flying her ship faster than ever. Leo was drawing new plans. And Sarah was talking to aliens who wanted to help. The Cricks didn't know it yet, but they had started something big. They thought they hurt strangers, but they hurt people with families and friends who would fight back. These 10 humans were loved, and their loved ones were powerful. The Cricks were about to learn that Earth doesn't give up. The galaxy was watching, and the people who cared about Tara, Sam, Mia, Jamal, Carlos, Layla, Emma, Raj, Sophie, and Noah were ready to act. The Cricks had made a big mistake, and they were going to find out just how wrong they were. The humans didn't waste time talking. They were hurt and angry about what the Cricks did, but they knew words wouldn't fix anything. Instead, they started acting quietly and carefully. Their plans were like seeds planted in the dark, growing where no one could see. The Cricks didn't notice at first. They were too busy feeling proud. But soon, strange things began happening. A Crick's ship vanished without a trace. A supply station stopped working. No loud battles, no warnings, no signs of who did it. The Cricks laughed, thinking it was nothing. But they were wrong. Something big had started, and the humans were behind it. It began with a single Crick's ship, a small one that carried food and tools to their soldiers. The ship was flying near a quiet part of space, far from any planet. One moment it was sending messages to other Crick's ships, saying everything was fine. The next moment it was gone. No explosion, no distress call, just silence. The Cricks leaders thought it was a mistake. Maybe the ship's radio broke, they said. They sent another ship to check, but it found nothing. Not even a piece of metal floating in space. The Cricks scratched their shiny heads, confused. They didn't know humans were involved, but someone on Earth had made that ship disappear. That someone was Zara, the hacker whose daughter Mia was taken. Zara sat in a small room on Earth, her eyes glued to a glowing computer screen. Her fingers moved fast, typing commands that could sneak into Crick systems. She found a way to mess with the ship's controls from far away. She turned off its engines, its lights, everything. Then she hid the ship in a cloud of space dust where no one could find it. Zara didn't hurt the Cricks on board. She just left them stuck, floating in the dark. She sent a message to her friends on Earth. One down. Zara's heart was heavy, but she felt a spark of hope. This was her way of fighting for Mia. Next, a Crick's supply station went dark. This station was a big building in space, full of crates packed with food, water, and machines. Crick's soldiers depended on it to keep their bases running. One night the station's power shut off. The lights flickered and died. The doors locked. The machines that sent supplies stopped moving. The Crick's workers inside were trapped, banging on the walls, shouting in their clicking language. They tried to fix it, but nothing worked. They sent a message to their leaders, but by the time help arrived, the station was empty. The supplies were gone, and no one knew how. This was the work of Omar, the trader whose sister Leela was taken. Omar knew every corner of the galaxy because he traveled to sell his goods. He had friends on many planets, including a group of pilots who owed him a favor. Omar asked them to sneak to the Crick station and take the supplies. The pilots were fast and quiet like shadows. They used small ships that couldn't be seen on Crick's scanners. They slipped inside, took the crates, and left before anyone noticed. Omar gave the supplies to poor aliens on a nearby planet. He didn't want the Cricks to have them. "This is for Lila," he said to himself, looking at the stars. The Cricks started to feel uneasy. Two things had gone wrong in just a few days. They called a meeting on their home planet in a tall tower made of black stone. The leader, Zorak, stood at the front, his red eyes glowing. "These are accidents," he told his soldiers. "No one would dare challenge us." The soldiers nodded, but some looked nervous. They didn't know humans were behind it, but they felt something wasn't right. Zorak laughed, his voice sharp like breaking glass. "We are the Cricks," he said. "We are too strong to fear." But his laugh sounded forced, like he was trying to convince himself. Back on Earth, more humans were joining the fight. Dr. Eli Carter, Tara's brother, was working in his lab. He was building a tiny device that could jam Crick's radios. It was so small it could fit in your hand, but it was powerful. Eli tested it on a Crick's message he intercepted. The message turned to static, like a radio losing its signal. Eli smiled for the first time since Tara was taken. He gave the device to a pilot named Kiera, who loved Raj, one of the humans taken. Kiera flew her ship near a Crick's base and turned on the device. Suddenly, the Cricks couldn't talk to each other. Their radios buzzed and crackled. They shouted, confused, as Kiera flew away, laughing. "This one's for you, Raj," she whispered. Meanwhile, Aisha, Jamal's wife, was helping in her own way. Aisha was a builder used to making houses on new planets. She knew how to take things apart, too. She joined a team of humans who sneaked onto a Crick's fuel station. This station held the gas that powered Crick's ships. Aisha showed the team how to loosen pipes and turn off valves. They worked quietly under the cover of darkness. When they were done, the station couldn't send fuel anymore. Crick's ships that needed gas were stuck, floating like toys with dead batteries. Aisha left a small mark on the station, a heart scratched into the metal for Jamal. The Cricks noticed the fuel station next. They sent engineers to fix it, but the damage was tricky. The pipes were loose in ways they couldn't understand. The valves were stuck and no one knew why. The engineers argued, their claws clicking in frustration. They told Zorak it would take days to repair. Zorak slammed his fist on a table. "Who is doing this?" he shouted. His soldiers looked at each other, afraid to answer. They still thought it was bad luck, not a plan. But the truth was, humans were everywhere, working together like a team. Commander Lena Ortiz, Sam's best friend, was leading some of these teams. Lena was in charge of Earth spaceships, and she knew how to move them without being seen. She sent a small fleet to a Crick's mining base where they dug up shiny rocks for weapons. Lena's ships didn't attack. Instead, they dropped tiny machines that burrowed into the ground. These machines messed up the Cricks' tools, making them break down. The miners couldn't work. They stood around, staring at their broken drills, wondering what went wrong. Lena watched from her ship, her face hard but hopeful. "We're coming for you, Sam," she said. On another planet, Leo, Sophie's friend, was helping too. Leo was an engineer who built bridges. He knew how to make things strong and how to make them weak. He worked with a group of humans who sneaked into a Crick's communication tower. This tower sent messages across space, telling Crick's ships where to go. Leo showed the team how to cut wires in a way that looked like an accident. When they were done, the tower stopped working. Crick's ships got lost, flying in circles. Leo left a small note inside the tower, hidden where no one would find it. It said, "For Sophie." He felt proud, knowing he was part of something bigger. Even Sarah, Noah's mom, was doing her part. Sarah was a diplomat, someone who talked to aliens to keep peace. But now she was talking to aliens for a different reason. She visited a planet called Vara, where kind aliens with blue fur lived. She told them what the Cricks did. The aliens were shocked. They promised to stop trading with the Cricks. Without trade, the Cricks couldn't get things like food or tools. Sarah thanked the aliens and moved to the next planet, spreading the word. She thought of Noah every moment, his love for animals giving her strength. "I'll make them pay, Noah," she said softly. The Cricks were starting to feel the pressure. Their ships were getting lost. Their stations were breaking. Their trade was slowing down. Zorak called another meeting, his voice louder this time. "Find out who's doing this," he yelled. His soldiers ran to check their computers, but they found nothing. The humans were too careful. They left no clues, no fingerprints. The Cricks still laughed, but their laughs were nervous now. They didn't know it was humans, but they knew something was wrong. On Earth, the humans kept working. They met in secret rooms, planning their next moves. Captain Lee, the leader of the Guardians, listened to reports from Zara, Omar, Eli, and the others. "Good work," he said. "But this is just the start. We need to keep going." Everyone nodded. They knew this was for Tara, Sam, Mia, Jamal, Carlos, Lila, Emma, Raj, Sophie, and Noah. They weren't fighting for revenge. They were fighting for justice. They wanted the Cricks to know they couldn't hurt people and walk away. The small acts of revenge were adding up. A Crick's water plant stopped working, leaving their soldiers thirsty. A Crick's weapon factory slowed down, unable to make guns. Each time something happened, the Cricks grew more confused. They sent ships to patrol, but the humans were too sneaky. They struck and vanished like ghosts in the night. The galaxy was starting to notice. Aliens on other planets whispered about the Cricks' problems. Some even cheered, happy to see the cruel aliens struggle. The humans didn't celebrate yet. They knew this was only the beginning. They had hurt the Cricks a little, but they wanted to do more. They wanted the Cricks to feel the same fear their loved ones felt. They wanted the galaxy to know Earth wasn't weak. The Cricks thought they could laugh and move on, but the humans were proving them wrong. Something had started, and it was growing bigger every day. The Cricks were used to being in charge. They thought no one could touch them. But strange things kept happening. Ships went missing. Stations stopped working. Supplies vanished. At first they laughed it off, thinking it was just bad luck. But one Crick's leader, a sharp-minded general named Vexer, began to see something was wrong. He read reports from his soldiers and noticed a pattern. These weren't accidents. Someone was planning this. The humans, the ones they thought were weak, weren't scared at all. They were getting ready for something big. Vexer was different from the other Crick's leaders. He wasn't as loud or cruel as Zorak, the head of the Cricks. Vexer was quiet, with eyes that seemed to see everything. He worked in a small office on the Cricks' home planet, surrounded by screens that showed news from across the galaxy. His job was to keep the Cricks' army strong. He studied every report, every message, looking for trouble before it started. When he saw the news about the missing ship, he didn't think much of it. But then a supply station went dark. Then a fuel plant broke down. Vexer leaned back in his chair, his claws tapping the desk. Something didn't feel right. He called his assistant, a young Crix named Slicks, into the room. "Bring me all the reports from the last week," Vexer said. Slicks nodded and hurried to gather the files. Soon, Vexer's desk was covered with papers and glowing tablets. He read each one carefully. The missing ship had been carrying food. The supply station had been full of tools. The fuel plant powered their fastest ships. These weren't random targets. Someone was hitting the Crix where it hurt. Vexer's red eyes narrowed. "This is no accident," he muttered. "Someone is fighting us." Vexer started making a list. He wrote down every problem: the ship that vanished, the station that locked, the fuel pipes that broke, the radios that turned to static. He drew lines between them like connecting dots in a puzzle. The more he looked, the clearer it became. These things happened in different places, but they all hurt the Crix in the same way. They lost food, tools, fuel, and ways to talk to each other. Vexer's heart beat faster. This was a plan, a clever one. Whoever was doing this knew exactly what they were doing. He thought about the humans. The Crix had taken 10 of them, thinking no one would care. Vexer had been at the meeting where Zorak gave the order. He hadn't liked it, but he stayed quiet. Now he wondered if that was a mistake. Humans were known for being tough. They came from a planet full of storms, beasts, and dangers. Maybe they weren't as weak as Zorak thought. Vexer pulled up a file on humans, reading about their history. They fought wars, built cities, and explored stars. They didn't give up easily. Could it be them? He whispered to himself. Vexer called a meeting with other Crix officers. They gathered in a cold, shiny room with a long table. The officers were nervous, their claws clicking on the floor. Vexer stood at the front, holding his list. "We have a problem," he said. "Our ships are disappearing, our stations are breaking. This isn't bad luck, someone is attacking us." The officers looked at each other, confused. One of them, a big Crix named Gors, laughed. "Who would dare?" he said. "We're the Crix. No one is strong enough." Vexer stared at him. "That's what we thought about the humans," he said. The room went quiet. Vexer showed them his list. He pointed to each problem, explaining how they were connected. "These attacks are smart," he said. "They're hitting our food, our fuel, our messages. They want us weak." The officers stopped laughing. Gors leaned forward, his eyes wide. "You think it's the humans?" he asked. Vexer didn't answer right away. He didn't want to sound crazy. "I don't know," he said, "but we need to find out." He told the officers to check every base, every ship, every station. "Look for anything strange," he said. "We can't ignore this." The officers left the meeting, talking in low voices. They were worried now. Vexer stayed behind, staring at his screens. He felt a chill, like cold water on his skin. If the humans were behind this, it meant they weren't afraid. It meant they were planning something bigger. Vexer sent a message to Zorak asking to meet. He wanted to warn him, but he knew Zorak wouldn't listen. Zorak thought humans were nothing. Vexer hoped he was right, but deep down he wasn't sure. On the Crix home planet, soldiers started checking their bases. They looked for broken wires, missing tools, anything out of place. At one base they found a tiny device stuck to a radio tower. It was small, like a coin, but it was making the radios buzz. The soldiers didn't know what it was. They sent it to Vexer. He held it in his claw, turning it over. It wasn't Crix technology. It looked human. Vexer's stomach twisted. He was starting to believe the humans were fighting back. At another base, soldiers found scratches on a fuel tank. The scratches formed a shape like a heart. No one knew what it meant, but it wasn't Crick's writing. Vexor added it to his list. He was collecting clues like a detective in a story. Each clue made him more certain. The humans were out there doing things the Cricks couldn't see. They were quiet, but they were strong. Vexor felt respect for them even though they were his enemies. They weren't acting like scared animals. They were acting like warriors. Zorek finally agreed to meet Vexor. They sat in Zorek's huge office with walls covered in shiny stones. Zorek leaned back in his chair, his claws crossed. "What's this about?" he asked, sounding bored. Vexor took a deep breath. "Our bases are being attacked," he said. "Ships are gone, stations are broken. I think it's the humans." Zorek laughed loud and sharp. "Humans," he said. "Those weak creatures, they can't do this." Vexor held up the tiny device from the radio tower. "This is human," he said. "They're not weak, they're planning." Zorek stopped laughing. He took the device, staring at it. For the first time he looked unsure. "What do they want?" he asked. Vexor shook his head. "I don't know," he said, "but they're not stopping." Zorek threw the device on the floor. "Find them," he growled. "Stop them." Vexor nodded, but he knew it wouldn't be easy. The humans were hiding, striking like shadows. They were everywhere and nowhere. The Cricks started sending more ships to patrol. They flew around their bases looking for human ships, but they found nothing. The humans were too clever. They used small ships that didn't show up on scanners. They struck fast and vanished. Vexor watched the patrols from his office, his screens showing empty space. He felt like he was chasing ghosts. Every day, new reports came in. A water plant stopped working. A weapon factory slowed down. Each report made Vexor's worry grow. The Cricks people were starting to notice, too. On their home planet, families talked about the problems. They heard about missing ships and broken stations. Some were scared, others were angry. "Why can't our leaders fix this?" they asked. The Cricks had always been strong, but now they felt weak. Vexor heard their complaints. He knew they were right to worry. If the humans kept this up, the Cricks would have big problems. Vexor worked late every night reading reports, looking for answers. He found a message from a trader on another planet. The trader said aliens were refusing to sell food to the Cricks. Vexor's eyes widened. This was new. He checked other messages and found more aliens were doing the same. They were cutting off trade. Vexor realized this was part of the plan. The humans weren't just breaking things. They were turning the galaxy against the Cricks. It was smart and it was scary. He thought about the 10 humans the Cricks had taken. He didn't know their names, but he knew they had families. Maybe those families were behind this. Vexor felt a strange sadness. He didn't like what the Cricks had done, but he was loyal to his people. He had to stop the humans, even if he respected them. He sent more soldiers to guard the bases. He told them to watch for anything small, a device, a mark, a shadow. "The humans are clever," he said. "Don't underestimate them." The other Cricks leaders were starting to worry too. Gores, who had laughed at Vexor, wasn't laughing anymore. He visited Vexor's office looking nervous. "What if you're right?" he asked. "What if it's the humans?" Vexor looked at him. "Then we're in trouble," he said. Gores swallowed hard. He wasn't used to feeling afraid. None of the Cricks were, but now they were all starting to feel it. The galaxy was changing. Aliens who used to fear the Cricks were talking about them differently. They whispered about the humans, saying they were strong. Some aliens even sent messages to Earth offering help. Vexor didn't know this yet, but he felt the shift. The Cricks weren't as powerful as they thought. The humans were proving it, one small attack at a time. Vexor sat alone in his office, staring at the heart-shaped scratch from the fuel tank. He wondered what it meant. Was it a message, a warning? He didn't know, but he felt it was important. The humans weren't just fighting, they were sending a signal. They were saying, "We're here and we're not afraid." Vexor closed his eyes. He knew the Cricks had started this by taking those 10 humans. Now they were paying for it, and he had a feeling it was only going to get worse. Back on Earth, something serious was happening.